5, 4, 3, 2, 1, fire. The only thing we have to fear is fear.
Mile 18.
This is Endurance Nation.
Free resource alert. Did you know that Endurance Nation created the 4 keys of racing execution? That's right, the seminal framework that people use to put structure into an otherwise unorganized and chaotic race day. We created it back in 2009. I've been honing that process ever since across all manner of sport and work as well. Our athletes use it in all aspects of their lives. It's an opportunity for you to use a framework that boils down the most complex situations into critical steps that you can follow and prepares you for the challenges that exist on race day. We have this framework. It's available for you. It's free. You can actually go online. If you go to endurancenation.us/4 keys, that's all written out, FOUR keys. You'll get an opportunity to download a free resource that explains the 4 keys to you, including a video from me, Coach Patrick, outlining how you can use it and opportunities to access even deeper resources down the line. This is your chance to break out of the chaos. If you've had bad races, messed up races, made simple mistakes, really wish when you cross the finish line that you can get that 30 minutes back, now you can. Plan ahead. Get the 4 keys at endurancenation.us/4 keys.
Endurance Nation.
So first up, step 1, we rest hard, we eat clean, and we regroup. So if you're like, I probably need 2 days off, double it. If you think 2, give yourself 4, because you're always going to hedge on those days off. Endurance athletes are horrible. So if you think you need a week, give yourself 2 weeks. I'm not saying shut it all down, but I'm saying be really smart in this 2-week window. So you're going to commit to 8+ hours of sleep. If you can't do it at first, just make sure you're cutting the sugar and caffeine out of your system late in the second half of the day. Get into bed, turn off the devices, just read a book. Eventually, you'll fall asleep. And you have to train your body to fall asleep because you're typically overstimulated in this overtrained state. And as a result, you're just ramped up, on edge, etc. So you got to really dial it back from the unnecessary calories and all the sugars and stuff you've been putting in your system to compensate for the fatigue that you have. And ultimately, you're trying to lock in this rest period across all aspects of your life. So it doesn't do you a lot of good if you dial down the workouts, but work is still a 10 out of 10 in terms of stress, right? Or other relationships or other situations and commitments. If you're being serious and true to your body and you want the best performance, whether it's on the bike, on the run, at the office, at the dinner table, Sunday at church, like whatever your optimal desired position is, then we have to make sure that we're doing our best to eliminate all of those stressors. And this is crunch time is a great time to make decisions, because when everything's fine, we're about it. Add another one. Who cares? Let's do another one. That's fine. But ultimately, over time, when you get to a place where adding more and more is just broken things for you, this broken period is the number one time to pull stuff off your plate. Just take it off. You are broken. It's easy to do. You know it. Your friends and family, the ones who love you, know, and the ones who are close to you know. Use this time to push stuff off the plate. Not saying you can't bring it back, but bring it back in a more incremental way. So double the time you think you need off. Commit to that sleep protocol, even if it means adding a nap during the day. Eliminate the dirty food from your routine to clean things up from a rest recovery cycle, and then do your best to improve all aspects of your life in terms of recovery. Next up, adjust your load structure. What I mean by this is different sport modalities bring different load to you. And for different people, some workouts are more costly. So for some people, a swim is really easy. They're a great swimmer and they just float in the water and it's zero TSS, zero training stress. For other people, swimming in the water, the legs are dragging, they're fighting it, they feel like it's borderline drowning. Tons of stress for them, right? We go for a 10-mile run, you run 6-minute miles, you're done in an hour. I run 10-minute miles, I'm done in an hour 40. Same 10-mile run, I have 40 more minutes of training stress on my body, the duration piece of time, than you have on yours. You're running faster, you think you'd be accumulating more stress, but it's really the duration factor that crushes me. And as a result, you have to be really smart when we make these decisions that we're eliminating the most costly training you have. So whatever that costly training is that's hurting you, if it's the run, if it's hard bikes, again, if it's the swim session or whatever your modality may be, we're going to eliminate that or reduce it. So if the run or long run's a problem, we take those long runs off the schedule, we replace it with a non-weight bearing aerobic exercise piece. Let's get the really costly stuff off the table, the worst possible things to get you better. If this were a load or something you were carrying, we take the heaviest thing from you so you can make sure you can manage with what you have and really significantly reduce what you have, right? Okay. As we make these decisions, we want to maintain frequency first and duration second. So if you've got 6 days of workout, ideally, you still keep 6 days of workout. We maintain that frequency of sessions, but what we do is we're willing to dial down that duration to keep the frequency. So if I still want to do 6 days of workouts, but you were doing 90 minutes every day and you're in this fatigue state, maybe we take those 90 minutes daily down to 60. So we're getting rid of 3 hours, 6 by 30 minutes, But we're keeping the frequency and your body's in that same zone. We've really dialed things back. Great. If we're keeping the frequency and dialing it down doesn't help you, then start to take that duration down as well, right? And say, you know what, I'm really gonna drive this down and say, I'm gonna make it 30 minutes, right? So we're not maintaining it as much, right? We just really dial down and give yourself more room. And you'll know over time as you move into this restorative phase that maybe you're not taking enough off the plate, right? Another way you can manage the load structure is to just drop by one zone. Instead of doing zone 5 intervals, do zone 4. Instead of zone 4, do zone 3. Instead of zone 3, do zone 2. Instead of zone 2, zone 1. And just do the math inside your head as you look at the workouts for this block of time, a week, 5 days, 7 days, 9 days, whatever it may be for you, to just really dial things back. Again, you're staying active, you're staying consistent, you're taking care of your body, stretching, maybe some napping, maybe a massage if you're fortunate enough to have the means, someone good near you to do that and you have the time. Otherwise, we're going to dial these zones back again to create more windows for recovery here by reducing the intensity of those quality sessions as a function of reducing the load structure. And all the time, all the while here, we're really closely monitoring how you're performing. Ideally, we start to see some good sleep. We start to feel better. If you become more and more motivated, you want to get back after it, that's okay. Don't do it right away. Hold on to that feeling. Take a little bit longer before we go rushing back to your training. That's a good sign. It means that you're walking the right path. Then we think about adjusting your training week. So we did the early triage. Then we said we're going to remove the training load. The next up, we're going to adjust our training week. In this case, we really have to think about what's more important to you, the weekdays or the weekends? Or inversely, what's more costly to you, the weekends or the weekdays? And then decide how we want to adjust. If you're training in the last couple of weeks to your big race, maybe we want to prioritize those long weekends. And the weekdays, we can do whatever we can to bridge every Saturday and Sunday to connect. I'm going to connect a Sunday to a Saturday, Sunday, and then Sunday to the next Saturday is what I'm trying to connect with those 5 days. In other cases, the weekends and the long sessions might be what's stressing you out with your other commitments. In that case, we need to focus on Monday through Friday, some flavor thereof, maybe Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and the other days really dial down in terms of focus. If that's the case, that's fine. But really take a good hard look at adjusting that week to make sure you set yourself up for success. What's the real pinch point for you? How do we improve it? Next up, you want to build in the micro rest blocks. And if not rest blocks, rest hours. What a lot of people run into in season is that when they get to Sunday, they put in a ton of work Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Monday, maybe it's just like a light aerobic day, but it's not enough time to recover. They're not done with the workout on Sunday till 4 p.m. and just resting for 24 hours really doesn't get them until the next day or 36 hours. It's not enough time. So maybe you need to actually do really hard rest on Sunday. Really putting in that easy day, off day, light walk, whatever it is, no heart rate monitor, whatever it means for you to go easy, putting that in there to rest hard. I'd rather you rest hard and really target a way that allows you to come back and be stronger, because that rest hard allows you to maintain more strength over time than not resting, getting right back at it, and ultimately setting yourself up for that real tough point that you get into with the slump, right? The whole time you're making these decisions, you want to prioritize your race day performance. So when you think about the workouts, which sessions are going to help you be successful? If you got a race that requires some short, intense efforts, like more of a mountain bike style, then maybe those midweek efforts matter most. If you're doing a race that's got lots of endurance inside of it, maybe the weekend sessions are actually higher priority workouts for you as you work on race nutrition, race pacing. So again, use that focus on what's going to help me be the best possible for the race. And that's that. And the only answer you can't give here is that it can't be all the things. You can't say, I want to include everything because Monday through Sunday, perfect is the way that I get ready for my race day performance. That's not going to cut it. Okay? And of course, don't forget, at this point in time, we're eliminating junk mileage. There's a time to add mileage and to build fatigue. When you already have plenty of fatigue, junk miles, just something to do because you don't want to do something else, right? You're avoiding something. Let's unavoid that. Let's dial it in. Let's eliminate those junk miles and focus on only what are the things you need to do to maintain your fitness and prepare yourself to be successful on race day. And last but not least, the fourth step here is we plan for the future. Let's talk a little bit about what our personal rule set is. Right? Maybe you had this concept that you would do these 8 weeks of consecutive runs or these big rides on this couple big weekends, or maybe a big weekend or big block. That was your personal goal. Those were your rules. We need to change that rule set. You say, I can't do 7 of those weeks in a row successfully. Or I can't do these 4 days hard in a row anymore. I can't do more than 2 days hard in a row. I need a rest day. Take that lesson. It's not that you have to do less work for next year. We just start off in that smart mode. We do 2 days, for example, a rest day and 2 days. Maybe the next time around in a couple of weeks, we can do 4 days together, or 3 days, 1 day rest and go again. But we can't do all 4 days right away. We know that breaks us. So how do we adapt accordingly? Let's also make sure when you plan for your season or plan for the remainder of your season, you actually block out rest periods. After your races, like we saw with Peter in his chart, actually build in some rest factors there. So really build in that rest. Remember, it's not the lifting of the weight that makes you stronger. It's the recovery period after, when your body heals up, the muscle fiber returns and actually gets stronger and then allows you to push more weight. But without that recovery restorative phase, you never get to a place where the strength manifests itself, right? You just continue stacking the fatigue. Another thing we want to make sure of here is that we want to improve our early alert systems. So if it is your mood, really dialing in on that the next time around, like making sure you're asking your significant other, spouse or roommate, hey, am I really off the reservation here? Paying attention to some of those key markers like heart rate variability or RPE issues, or just that sort of feeling of malaise. If you can catch it sooner, you can start making small micro changes as well. Maybe an extra nap, changing your nutrition, being really good for 3-4 days during the week to keep the ship on course so you don't have to take that full down cycle time, which is the interrupter. This interrupter that saves your season is necessary. When you break the glass and pull that switch down, everything stops now as we focus on the recovery. And our job is to make sure we just don't set fire to the kitchen first. And then along the way, we just want to capture our personal best solution. So if you find a way out of this, understand what you did, know what you did, what really resonated for you. Was it the rest? Was it the sleep? Was it the nutrition? Was it changing your week? What did you do that made this better? Keep that protocol, save it. So in the future, when you run into trouble again, you have a protocol to start with right away. No stumbling around for a couple of days till you sort it out. You're like, I'm going to use protocol A or protocol 2B, and then get after that and actually use that to manifest faster, rapid recovery so you can be better on track and really avoid all the hiccups. So again, a large part of what we're doing here on demand in the middle of your season is building a better endurance season roadmap. So really getting a better sense of like, how do I handle this race epic period here? How do I handle this ramp to be successful? And how much recovery do I need? If you're like Peter, it's possible you can do just one good ramp and then maintain that time and use races strategically across the year. That's great for someone who's busy. If you're not Peter and there's only certain times a year you may race, you may change your structure accordingly. But I will tell you that at a minimum, 4 weeks of reentry training and then 12 weeks of ramping are really critical before you get into the race. And if you're going to do 4, 12 and then right into the race, just know that you're talking about a 4-month block of just going consistently without any rest. So we do recommend some shorter blocks in there, typically every 6 weeks, to get a rest. So if we were stacking these all together and we said, oh, this is 4, 12, and 2, that's 18 weeks. That's 3, at least 2 1-week blocks inside there. So you have 3 functions of 6, 2 1-week blocks in there. So you go 5-1, 5-1, and then you do your last 6 into the race. That would allow you 2 weeks of rest in that cycle. So always factoring in that rest to allow your body to heal as need be. Remember, we're looking for, as an amateur, we're looking to not slow down. We're looking to not break. We're looking to not make the mistakes our competition's making. That's what makes us faster. Okay. All right. I got a few moments here. Got a few questions that are always easy to answer, and I'm happy to do it. So question number 1, how do I know the slump is real? How do I know that I'm really in a tough spot? Do I really need to get out of this? What's the strategy here? It's, you know what? You're looking in the distance when you first see a slump and you're not quite sure, and you can wait, just like a speeding train as you're standing on the tracks. You can wait to see if it's a speeding train. My advice to you, let's step out of those tracks. Let's just take some baby steps right now. So in that scenario, you can still implement 2 or 3 sort of very light days, particularly coming off of a weekend. This is easy. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. It allows Thursday and even Friday to be a bit of re-entry, and you're right back on track. Your Saturday, Sundays continue to be on the path. That's fantastic for your training plan. And we took a good hard look at it. If it didn't turn out to be fatigue in retrospect as looking after it, worst case scenario, you're just a little more rested for your race, a little more rested for the peak period of your training. No harm, no foul, which is fine. The challenge becomes when we're like, maybe it isn't, I don't know, what do you think? What do you think? All the while we're continuing on. We're not doing anything to mitigate the potential risk that we see. We have to be really careful there. The next piece with that question also is, what's the red flag for you? Is it fatigue? Is it nutrition? Is it monotony? Whatever that is, because it's possible that just by addressing 1 or 2 elements of the system, we can prevent that alarm from triggering in a way that can make things better for you. So adding a little bit more rest into your block, maybe changing the modalities a bit, changing the training load structure. So one example that I've done really well with athletes in a 12-week build to a key race is to keep the trajectory going, But after 3 weeks of work, we have another fourth week, but it's not an off week. It's just we really changed the modality. So if you've been cycling hard for 3 weeks, what do we do in that fourth week? We cycle hard like 2 sessions, but the rest of the time is time on your feet or cross training. You're doing a fair amount of time, probably similar commensurate wise in terms of total time, but completely different modalities, which allows you to really rest from the bike, even though we're keeping our training load high. That allows you to be successful long-term with your goal without accumulating all of that individual discipline fatigue, which is what typically really starts to trigger the warning signs in there. So something for you to figure out and think about, right? Okay, another question. How many races is too many races? I saw what you said about Peter. I saw his Palmares. He's got all these races. Like, can I do 97 races? I'll tell you this, races are expensive and they're hard to get to. And there's a lot of cost, like social, work-wise, et cetera, doing the races. That said, having your races bunched in your season is actually really powerful if you're able to do it, because it means you only have to build your fitness once. We can manage this peak level across the top to stay close to your peak performance before we drop down again into some serious recovery. That allows you to get 2 or 3 races. In a typical Ironman season, for example, 4 weeks of reentry, 12 weeks of doing a ramp, and then you've got a race, say. So you get like 16 to 20 weeks in there for the race. And then if you were to recover for 4 weeks, then you'd repeat that whole cycle. And in the course of that, you're talking of maybe you could do 2 Ironman races in a whole year, but they're 22 months apart. And so you've got a race in, make it up May, and then you got another race in November. Then those are just 2 massive seasons, and you're just training all year long. You're training in all sorts of conditions. It's really fatigue. You could instead say, I'm going to extend the ramp on the front end, maybe a little more reentry, or maybe we drop the ramp period and make it a little longer, like 18 weeks, for example, instead of just 12. And then you do 2 races in a 5-week period. In that case, we have 2 races for just 1 ramp period. You got plenty of time to rest and maybe do some fun stuff in the fall. So really thinking about what your goals are. Another way to manifest this from the race perspective is to use shorter races or different races in the earlier part of your season as milestone events for you to prepare, but take some of the pressure off of just training and the monotony of doing things by yourself. So inside Endurance Nation, people will do a half Ironman in the winter training period. People will do, half marathon. Do a half Ironman in the middle of their season for an Ironman build, or an Olympic for a half Ironman build. If they're doing like gravel races, they may do shorter, like single-day classics, hell of 100 in for 70 miles in March before they go off and do a 20-miler or something later in the year. So you can find shorter events that can be part of your stepping stone and replace some of your simulation workouts that allow you to stay successful. Again, not all of us can race, but it's certainly worth trying to put the races together. The key is, and this is important, stacking different races together gets hard. So if you did an Ironman and then you said, I want to do a half Ironman and do it fast, having those close together is hard. Ironically, doing 2 Ironman races in that same window is a little bit easier because you're doing the same type of level of work. There's no differential. When you come off of a big race and then try and do a shorter race and go very faster, that's typically hard for athletes to move the needle from go far to go fast and see those performance gains. You might see a gain later in the season, but in that short window, typically we don't see that turnaround in terms of being able to maintain your speed, but also keep your endurance level high. So you do have to manage your expectations in that period as well. Last but not least, workout nutrition, which is a great question. I know I touched on this earlier. Yes, without a doubt, poor workout nutrition is something that begins every year in the winter when athletes are training and they're only training for 45 minutes or an hour, and they don't really think about eating or drinking because it's only an hour. So why would I eat or drink? That's your choice. That's fine. For an hour session, you technically don't need to. The problem becomes that you carry that same mindset into your year. The rides go to 90 minutes or 2 hours, and you're only really having 1 bottle. Whereas you finished last season when you were training hard for 2 hours, you were having 3 bottles. You 1 bottle every 40 minutes. You're 2 bottles behind right now. And it's not really a problem. And you won't know it's a problem until you start running into a place where your workout performance is dropping and you don't understand. Or every time you hit a convenience store, guilty, you eat a ton and you feel great for the end of your ride. You're just under fueling and putting yourself in a bad position. So one of the ways you can solve for this is actually having markers on your calendar, personal calendar, that sort of tell you like, hey, it's March. It's time to change the nutrition plan, right? Or reminders, right? I do reminders for my cycling equipment or my run equipment. I do the same for nutrition. Hey, it's September. Time to put this into place. Hey, it's November. Your season is ended, but let's be really smart about our nutrition so we maintain our body composition and set ourselves up for success. All of that really matters over time. All right. This has been fantastic. I want to thank everyone for joining and for tuning in.
Endurance Nation.
Product of the week is our Race Saver bag. Stay cooler, race faster. Have you ever been in a race? You pass an aid station and then you can't wait for the next aid station. As a runner, you're just craving it. Even though they're only a mile apart on the road, it seems that each one is getting further and further apart. What if you could take the ice that you had at that last aid station and carry it with you? Not in a cup, not clinking around, but in a handy bag on your wrist. That, my friends, is the Race Saver bag. It takes advantage of your physiology where your body generates a protein that actually signals to your brain that you're cooling off. It happens in the core of your hand. Professional athletes use this, and now you can too. You can't race in the heat without managing your core temperature, and now you can. It's the Race Saver bag, and you can find it online at www.mile18inc.com/race saver. That's mile18inc.com/race saver, all one word. You can get your bag now. Hey, get two. Share one with your friend or your loved one so you make sure they also have the race of their life. You don't slow down, and you make everyone else jealous out there on the race course. Get a Race Saver.
For more information about Endurance Nation, visit us online at endurancenation.us. The provided music is from the Podshow Podsafe Music Network. Check it out at music.podshow.com.